Hi there, I'm Cam Ward from the London Contemporary School of Piano, and today we're going to look at how to improve your 2-5-1 chord progressions. If you're a fan of our work here at the London Contemporary School of Piano and love our videos here on the channel, do head on over to our website contemporaryschoolofpiano.com and request our free resources kit. It's full of loads of wicked materials to help you liberate your playing. So today we're going to be starting off in the key of C, okay, all the white notes. Now what is a 2-5-1? If we use our C major scale and build up the 7th chords on that, we get C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, A minor 7, and B half diminished. Now for this, all we need is our 2, our D minor 7, our 5, our G7, and our 1, our C major 7. Now let's just play that in our left hand. D minor 7, G7, and C major 7. Let's do that one more time. Now this progression you've probably heard mentioned quite a lot. It's used all over the place, especially in the worlds of sort of like jazz and the Great American Songbook. But you might realise that this by itself might sound a little bit boring. Doesn't sound as sophisticated as maybe some of your favourite musicians and pianists do. So today we're looking at how to make that a little bit more sophisticated and juicy. So to start with, notice that rather than jumping in this progression, we can play it much smoother using some inversions. Now, this first chord, D minor 7, has a D, an F, an A, and a C. Now remember those notes, D, F, A, C. Next chord, G, B, D, F. Are there any of those notes that are shared? Are they in common with our previous chord? The D and the F, you're quite right. So actually, the D and the F can stay in the same place, and these two top notes, the A and the C, can drop down here to the G and the B. And you see there, we have an inversion of our G7, but played much smoother. Now, to get to our C major 7, you can probably see already how you want to move there nice and smoothly. These top two notes, the G and the B, stay in the same place, and your bottom notes, the D and the F, drop down to C and E. Now, how much smoother is that to play? One more time. Now that pattern of the top two notes dropping down and then the bottom two notes dropping down is exactly the same in any key, in any 2-5-1 progression. Now they'll be moving down in their respective scale, like here, because we're in the key of C major, we're moving down white notes, but in other keys there might be other, flats and sharps to play with. Lovely. Let's play that with our right hand, and our left hand is going to just play the root note to add a little bit of richness to the bass. Bit thicker. Let's play it again. Lovely. Now that we've got that under our fingers, and we know the notes and we know the shapes, we can add to it. We can expand on that and get some nice, juicy, jazzy colours involved. The first one I'm going to teach you is for that D minor 7. Rather than having D, F, A, and C in your right hand, we're going to play F, A, C, and E in our right hand. Our left hand, notice, is still playing our D at the bass because it's a D minor chord. Now that sounds really rich. Why do you reckon it sounds really rich? If we look at the notes we've got, the F, that's our third of the chord. The A is our fifth. The C is our seventh. That E on the top is the ninth. So technically what we're playing here is a D minor 9 chord. But if you notice, my right hand is essentially playing an F major 7 chord, but I can change it into a D minor 9 just by having my left hand playing a D as a root. Simple as that. It's a really nice, rich sound. I love that. Now, a little trick to get to an extra spicy G7 chord. Our left hand changes to our G in the root, and all that's going to change in our right hand is one note. Okay, we were here, remember? F, A, C, E. All that's going to change is your C is going to drop down to a B. It's going to sound like this. Really nice. So let's look at what we've technically got there. So our G, the root in our left hand. Our right hand, our thumb is playing the F, which is the 7th of the chord. We've got the B here, which is our 3rd. The A is the 9th. And the E on the top is the 13th. So technically here you're playing a G13. But we don't have to think about that. Just think about that one note dropping down. So D minor 9, G13. How rich is that? You can probably recognise that from a lot of songs that you've heard just with those two chords. Yeah, sounds a little bit richer than just doing. Okay, that's the vanilla version. And with the extra note, adds a little bit of something extra. Now to go from here to our C major chord, what we're going to do is C in the root, and our right hand plays an E, a G, a B, and a D. Now what we end up playing here, you'll notice your right hand is essentially playing an E minor 7 chord, but with the C in the bass, the E becomes the 3rd, the G becomes the 5th, the B becomes the 7th, and the D becomes the 9th. So we'd call that a C major 9 chord. Really nice. Let's play that whole progression. D minor 9, G13, C major 9. Really nice. One more time. One thing I love about working here at the London Contemporary School of Piano is getting to work alongside students such as yourself to liberate their piano playing. If you'd like to find out more, do head on over to our website contemporaryschoolofpiano.com and leave us an inquiry. We can add a little bit of tension into that progression. Now, I'm a big fan of tension and release. If you've seen me on this channel before, you'll notice I speak about that all the time. Now, that D minor 9's really nice. That G13, I feel we can get a little bit of extra tension in there before resolving it to that C major 9. Now, what I'm going to do, you'll see that my second finger here is playing that A, which is the 9th. Now, with a simple movement, all I can do is drop it a semitone to hear the A flat. Crunchy, but I like it because we're going to resolve somewhere. And you'll notice as well, this finger is going to go A flat, G to resolve, okay? So let's just hear them all together. So what we've done is we've split that G7 chord into a G13 and then G13 with a flat 9. Now these complicated chords, but it's just a simple one-note movement. Now it's quite a tense sound. You might play that and go, actually, I'm not a fan of that. and that's okay. What we're doing here is showing you loads of different sort of language elements and words that you can see whether you like and would like to add into your vocabulary. It's all about discovering which tensions, which sort of chromatic dissonances you enjoy. There's no right answer. Lovely one there. We can even, if you really fancy making it even more dissonant, which I do, rather than having that A flat there, we can have the E flat on the top as well. And then resolve it down. That's C major 9. So if I actually took all three of those, G13, then flat 9, then flat 13, and then C major 9, I've taken that one chord and split it into 3 different sounds. Even though it's technically only a G7 chord, it will sound like 3 different chords. I mean, that sounds really rich and sophisticated. I can imagine sitting in a cocktail bar and mashing into that. Lovely stuff. Have a play around and see which ones you like. You can do them in different combinations and find which resolutions resonate with you. Now, you've probably heard the phrase tritone substitution before. Now, it sounds horrible, it's a complex word, but actually it's really simple. Now, all a tritone substitution is, you can only do it with dominant 7th chords. So I have a lot of students talk to me and say, can I tritone substitute my D minor chord? No, we can't. We can only tritone substitute a dominant 7th chord. Now, a tritone simply means 3 tones or 6 semitones. So if we took our G and we went 3 tones away from it, it doesn't matter whether we go up or down, it's going to come to the same answer. And I'll show you that. So G, A, B, D flat. And we'll go down, and I'll show you this exactly the same. G, F, E flat, D flat. Okay? Notice it's exactly the same note, no matter whether you count up 3 tones or down 3 tones. It's exactly halfway in between the octave. Now, what you can do is you can replace a dominant 7th chord, in this case a G7, with a D flat 7 chord. Now you're probably thinking, why? They're not very related, but I'm going to show you just how related they are. Let's take those notes from our G7 chord. Now notice what we've got. G, B, D, and F. Now, the root is obviously important because that kind of grounds the chord. However, the most important notes harmonically are the 3rd and the 7th. The 3rd tells us whether it's major or minor, and the 7th gives us the chord's kind of function. Is it dominant or not? The 5th, unfortunately for itself, is often seen as a little bit irrelevant. It's sort of there as a filler. This is because the 5th is always linked to the root. So every type of G chord, G7, G major 7, G minor 7, notice how the 5th is always D. So it's sort of just seen as a kind of replaceable, irrelevant little filler note. So our 3rd was B and our 7th was F. These are often referred to as the guide tones of the chord, if you've ever heard of that. And you'll notice that if I have just the guide tones and the root note, the chord does sound full. Okay, so let's remember that. The 3rd was B and the 7th was F. Let's now look at the notes for our D flat 7 chord. So we're going to have a D flat in the bass, an F, an A flat, and a C flat, but we'll call it a B to look at it. Notice what the 3rd and the 7th are. We have an F and a B. What were they for the G7? It was a B and an F. See how they're the same, but just swapped around. So the essence of the chord is actually the same. They can resolve the same way. Now what's magical about this is I played earlier and you you could hear that that sounds like a G7 chord with me just playing my guide tones and my G in the root. I can simply play a D flat 7 chord just by changing that left hand. I haven't got to do anything here because I've got my 3rd and my 7th here. D flat 7, G7, D flat 7, as if by magic. Now that is all a tritone substitution is. It's taking a dominant 7th chord and replacing it with the dominant 7th chord that is a tritone away, because it shares the 3rd and the 7th. They sound very similar. Now, let's see what that sounds like in the context of our 2-5-1. So my left hand's going to play the root, D minor 7, then D flat 7, then C major 7. Let's play that again. Now also what you'll probably notice is my left hand is just moving chromatically stepwise down. And that's also what happens when you tritone substitute a 2-5-1. You get this really nice descending chromatic bass line, which is incredibly satisfying. I love that sound. Now, the magical thing as well about tritone substitutions is whatever voicing you have played for your previous chord, your G7, like we played this G13 chord voicing, to play some sort of D flat 7 chord voicing, guess what? We can leave our right hand in exactly the same place. All that has to change is our left hand bass note. And we get a different flavour. So let's play that. Now the rule that I like to give myself is if the chord sounds, quite pretty, quite tonal, like this G13 does, it sounds quite stable, it sounds quite nice. If I tritone substitute it, it gets crunchy. And in this case, if you want me to break down the notes, we have our 3rd, we have our 7th, we have our sharp 5, or flat 13, depending on how you want to think about it, and just sharp 9 on the top. But I'm just thinking of it as the same voicing. You can even play them together. And it sounds like we've added a completely different chord there, when actually, when we peek behind the curtain, you can see that my right hand is playing exactly the same thing. The only thing that's changed is the harmonic context with that left hand bass note. Okay. If you're a fan of our work here at the London Contemporary School of Piano and love our videos here on the channel, do head on over to our website contemporaryschoolofpiano.com and request our free resources kit. It's full of loads of wicked materials to help you liberate your playing. Another cool trick when we kind of want to play a crunchy or an interesting rich chord. If I took that G in my bass for a G7, a cool voicing would be in my right hand to play a D flat 7 chord. Now the D flat 7 was the tritone substitution. And what you do is the more familiar you get with these, you just start seeing them as pairs. So there's 6 pairs of tritones on the piano. So if I see a G, I can think of it as like, I can use a D flat 7 here as well. Or if I see a C, that's a G flat 7 as well. All these little pairs which are really useful. Now, the reason being is, if I now play a D flat 7 chord in my right hand, but my left hand plays the bass note of a G, quite crunchy. That might be a bit low there, so I'll play a different inversion. That's a bit better. What you get every time is you have your 3rd and your 7th, okay? Kind of basic root of the chord. You will get a flat 9 and you will get a flat 5. So it's a really nice way to play a kind of quick altered chord is to think, okay, over my bass note, I'm going to play the dominant 7th chord a tritone away. Bam. G7 altered. The same way that if I wanted to play my D flat in the bass, I can just play a G7 chord in my right hand. And that is playing D flat 7 altered. Okay? My 7th and my 3rd. Yeah? My flat 5 and my flat 9. Okay? And it's way easier to play inversions of like G7 in my right hand than it is to think of inversions of D flat 7 altered. That would make my brain hurt a little bit. Also really cool if you wanted to use it for like improvisation. It's a really nice line. All I'm playing is a G7 arpeggio over a D flat, and I'm doing some cool sort of D flat 7 altered things. A little trick for you there. Okay. Now all of these kind of chords doesn't have to be one or the other. You can use them together. I could be sort of like D and any sort of combination. Okay. We're going to look at one more type of kind of substitution we can do. And that's going to be to turn our dominant 7th chord into a suspended chord. Now, what is a suspended chord? A sus chord. So if we take our regular triad, we'll start off with a triad to explain this. G, B, D, G major triad. If I wanted to play a G suspended 4th, all that happens is it's talking about the 3rd changing. So my 3rd becomes the 4th. So that would be G sus 4 or G suspended 4th. You'll have heard that sound loads. And if it was G sus 2, the 3rd becomes the A. Now in general, if you see the term sus without the number 2 or the number 4, it's normally talking about a suspended 4th. That tends to be more of the sound. Now, if we do the same thing, but rather than with a triad, we're doing it with our dominant 7th chord. So that's our G7. We suspend that 3rd to make it a 4th. We get this, G, C, D, F. Already sounds quite interesting. We can make it better. And there's a trick I can show you. Now, remember how I said the 5th is often seen as irrelevant? It's there as a filler note, but we're going to take it away for the purpose of this. So that D has gone. Now, I'm already playing my root note, the G, in my left hand. So I don't need it with my thumb here. I can maybe have a more interesting note. What about the 9th or the 2nd? So in a way, I've sort of got my 4th and my 2nd involved, and then my 7th on the top. Wow, what a lovely sound. Now you'll notice by looking at it, we can think of it in a more simple way. My right hand, is playing an F major triad. That's all it's doing. It's an inversion there, but it can be in any inversion. And my left hand is playing a G. So a little quick trick to play sort of a G dominant 7th sus chord is you look at your root note, you go a tone below it, in this case an F, and play that major triad. Lovely. You could call this like G9 sus 4. Okay, that's probably how it would be written, but it sounds lovely. You might recognise that chord actually from the Luther Vandross tune, Never Too Much. That's what the introduction does. They're all this sus chord. Just came to me just then. We can actually make this sus chord even more interesting by rather than just playing an F major triad, what if we play an F major 7 chord? Super rich, super warm. Now this I'd probably call G13 sus. Okay? But you can think of it as F major 7 over G. Now what's amazing is if we put that into one of the 2-5-1 structures we did earlier, that D minor 9 notice for that, our right hand was just playing F major 7. So to get to then that G13 sus, all that has to happen is my left hand changes to a G. That's it. How easy is that? And it has this kind of floaty quality about it. And then resolve to the C. I love that sound. A really classic one that a lot of jazz pianists do is they take that suspended chord, so in this case, F major 7 over G, then if I drop my 2 middle notes down a semitone, so the A becomes the A flat and the C becomes the B, I then get that flat 9 with a 13 sound. And listen to how nice it feels to go from that sort of floaty to then tense to then resolved. Super, super nice. I love it. Now, that suspended chord sounds great. We can get a sort of more modern flavour by also tritone substituting with the suspended chord. So the tritone substitution of a G was a D flat. So using the same trick we just did there of using the tone below our root note and play that major 7 chord. It can be in any inversion as well if we want it to be. We're going to do that with our D flat. So what's a tone below our D flat? B. So let's play a B major 7 chord in our right hand. I'll play it maybe in a different inversion, or here, or there. Let's hear that in the context of the 2-5-1. Oh, super nice. What if I put the G suspended chord and then the D flat suspended chord together? Quite a modern flavour there. And you can play around with both of them. It doesn't have to be both suspended, it could be one. You could do the D flat and then the G. And you've got a whole world of different sounds to play around with just in the space of a 2-5-1. So when a pianist says they're sitting there and just playing a 2-5-1, they very well might be. It's just that in that world you have so many different sounds to play around with. Have a mess about, see which sounds that you like, which ones resonate with you. Some might be a little crunchy for you, some might not be crunchy enough. See which ones work best, and then try them in some tunes, and see which ones you like the sound of. If you're a fan of our work here at the London Contemporary School of Piano and love our videos here on the channel, do head on over to our website contemporaryschoolofpiano.com and request our free resources kit. It's full of loads of wicked materials to help you liberate your playing.